I just felt that this particular subject was really interesting and important for people to know about.
It all started when George came to me with the script Trafficking.
I showed it to Richard, and he loved it, and through that, we decided to do something about it.
I had a chance to look over the script and read it, and by the time I was finished, I realized that this was a movie that had to be made.
I got a call from Richard, who told me he was doing a project on the issue of child trafficking. Originally, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to expect, really, because it was an issue I really did not know anything about.
I decided to take on this project because I really stood behind the cause, and I really wanted to be a part of a film project that would help to educate people.
The biggest factor that made me decide to shoot trafficking was the subject about the smuggling of kids. When I heard about this subject, it really motivated me to take it on.
This was kind of a shock to me. I had no idea that little children were being trafficked this way and that it's actually happening.
I did some research after the audition, just out of my own curiosity about child trafficking. I was never aware that it was happening in the U.S.
And slavery, I thought, was dead. It's not. These are kids, and kids are people who cannot fight back, and that's what's so sad about it.
Child trafficking in the United States is becoming a problem. Over 20,000 children are imported illegally into the United States for illegal sexual activities and forced child labor.
Child trafficking is the third biggest illegal industry following drugs and arms. And what I find amazing is that people don't realize that it's in their own backyard. You know, like me living here in the United States, we don't think we have a problem here with that. And then I all of a sudden find out that there are many children that are trafficked here. I hope that the audience will look at this movie as a beautiful story that's showing a plight of children that we might be able to help.
Okay, camera rehearsal. Okay. And action!
I'm George C Bujold, and I play Serge, the main character in the film Trafficking. He's a journalist. He is someone who is renowned in his field, and he's passionate about a lot of different issues, and one of them is child trafficking. He's not afraid to go out there and try to get the story. This is salvation, to be able to at least do something about something that perhaps no one else is doing anything about. I did a lot of research in the sense of looking at journalists, how they interview, how they go out there and ask these tough questions. I looked at many journalists, interviewers, you know, even from Michael Moore to Matt Lauder. And it's interesting because everyone has a style.
My character probably has one of the most painful souls you can have. She's tried to overcome something which is very impossible to even comprehend for other people that haven't been in her position. Being abused since you were a kid, being sold for sexual favors is something that is just so cruel and so painful for me to think about that I don't even know how to go there. I had to go there with other things that have happened to me to substitute that, to get that feeling, the pain and the hurt and everything of having to succumb, overcome, and to be strong.
Mario was a lot of fun. With this heavy topic of, you know, child trafficking, I knew Mario had to be light. You know, he did need to be fun, you know, because everything else was so heavy.
I realized, and it's something that Richard said to me, which he said, you know, in real life, our inner monologue is not what we say. Your inner monologue is the dialogue. What you say is dialogue on top of that, but it's all in your face, what the audience see as the emotion, and the emotion is the most important thing. And one of the things that I really found amazing, now Richard is a young director, and I've worked with quite a few directors, and here you have a young director that tells me this. He says to me, you know, George, silence is golden, and it's the silence that says the most. And he spoke about silent films. You know, when was the last time we saw a silent film? Most of us don't even know where to go to see a silent film. And here you have Richard, who tells me, you know, look at silent films, and look at those actors they say so much, even though you don't hear it verbally. It's all in their face, it's all in their movement, and it's timing.
Working with the director, with Richard, was a good experience because he gave us space for us to give our creative input.
Throughout this process with Richard, if I had an idea, he was so wide open to listening to it. I could say, hey Richard, what about something, you know, what about if I change this to that, it's more specific. Oh, okay, yeah, I like that, but you know. That I think is key. If you're doing a film, it's like a symphony. You all have to work together.
One of my favorite moments of making this film was to sort of experiment with all these different types of film stocks and different formats.
We shot on 5 different formats for this movie. We shot DV, DV Cam, 8mm, 35mm, and HD.
I was really curious to see how the film would play out just using different formats. A lot of what Richard, the director, was talking about how he wanted to implement all these different mediums. I thought that was really interesting and unique.
I decided to shoot on 8mm film stock in the bedroom scene to bring that grainy feeling Serge's character was experiencing. His flashbacks were shot on 35mm to emphasize his memories clearly coming back to him. And the scene where Serge goes undercover in the bar, we shot that from the perspective of the hidden camera, which we shot on DV.
Shooting on multiple formats was very complicated.
Many people told us that it just couldn't be done, that we were going to run into a lot of problems in post-production shooting on multiple formats. But fortunately, we had a lot of great people working on this project, such as our producer, Moose Sun, who really understands the technology.
The grain structures in the 8mm, that gives it a specific look, and I think that look was chosen very well for those particular scenes.
No, but just for the camera.
This movie was actually quite a vast project to take on. When I got the script initially, I showed some of my colleagues and they were like, exterior desert, children in sheds, how are you gonna pull this off? Like, this is unproducible material. And I was like, no, you know, this movie has to be made. There has to be some way we can put this together. And in the end, we did. About
2 or 3 weeks before we were supposed to shoot, our production designer had to back out because she had a medical problem, and our cinematographer also backed out on the exact same day. We had to go into quick brainstorming mode, thinking of everyone we could. Everything sort of worked out in the end. We got this really great production designer who really sort of brought a very unique vision to the production design of this film. And we also had a cinematographer who has had a lot of experience.
We tried to shoot at another airport. It was like a couple days before the shoot, and that location fell out. It was very amazing that within a couple, 1 or 2 days before the shoot, we got a location, and not only that, we got an airplane.
We talked a pilot into letting us use his plane.
Talk someone into letting us use their private airplane for free and to shoot on their landing strip, that's just impossible.
One of our actors didn't show up, so our gaffer, Alan, he had to take his role. Our gaffer made his debut acting.
Regarding this issue?
No, sir.
George is a very good friend of mine.
Action.
And one of the most wonderful people I've met. And I don't think he slept very much in the set. And then there was the part where he forgot his shirt, and he had to do a scene with that shirt, and for some reason the shirt wasn't there. And he was kind of thinking about maybe he should go in the middle of the night, all the way back to LA, get the shirt, which was a couple of hours drive, in the middle of the night with no sleep, and driving all the way back so he could wear that shirt. That to me was probably one of the funniest things ever.
The fact that we shot in extreme heat, shooting in 110 degrees in the middle of the summer in the desert, the equipment got very hot and very hard to handle. But it was appropriate because even us, the crew and the actors, I think being in that under those extreme conditions, it was really reflective of the areas in which this kind of trafficking takes place.
People were so willing to participate, and that's the beauty of it. By doing something of this nature that is so prevalent and important, people came and wanted to give their all.
It was emotionally fulfilling as well to be able to create a project like this.
If you believe that something can be done, you just do it. And even with a lot of the obstacles that are in the way, when you all of a sudden do it, it becomes a process that just happens at the end when everything was said and done, to say to my team, we did it.
It was such an amazing collaborative process.
With all of our combined efforts, I think we were able to overcome sort of every single obstacle we faced on the way.
It all really worked out surprisingly well. We didn't melt down in that heat.